Hey guys, I want to thank you all for your support in listening to this podcast. I just want to take a second and ask all of you to take a few minutes and leave a review on the platform you're listening on. These reviews will help spread the word and boost our ratings. You can also leave a review on the Failing Justice Facebook page by searching at Failing One Justice in the search bar.
This is Failing Justice.
Oh my goodness, extremely goofy. Always the life of the party, of course. He loved to fish, all kind of sports. A very athletic child. My athletic child is what I'm calling. Oh my goodness, literally never a dull moment in our household, ever. He always kept all of us laughing. And that's what everybody will say. They be like, oh my God, he always makes us so happy. When I talk to his friends now, they all say, we just miss him because he always made us smile. And that's what I miss his smile. Oh my goodness, that smile just would make my day. Just to hear him say, Mom, I love you. And then I'll say, what you want? But just to know that I know my son and the things that I've displayed and heard people saying about him are just like, that's not the kid I know. So if you weren't around him and you didn't know him personally, you'd have to know him personally before you speak on him. And he's just awesome. All around awesome kid, to be honest.
Turning now to a follow-up, a Jacksonville man is still missing, now more than 3 months after he disappeared. This week, Tyress Gipson's family spent their first Thanksgiving without him, and as East Texas News Weekend's Dante Nunez reports, Tyress's mother is still looking for answers about what happened to her son.
18-year-old Tyress Gipson went missing the night of August 22nd. Mother of 3, Lavance Wooten shares her memories through pictures of her son.
One of the pictures, probably maybe the main picture that I see floating around, Tyress is wearing the Letterman jacket from Jacksonville. Now, talk about that. You said he was athletic, so did he play football? Like, what was his? I remember that picture. I remember that smile. That's just such a distinct picture for me. Talk about that picture and kind of his athleticism a little bit.
Yes, I actually took that picture in my front yard, and he absolutely loved football. It was like his favorite ever. He played basketball too, but football was his heart. And oh my goodness, I remember when I bought that jacket, he was like, Mom, I'm gonna tell you how much it is because it's kind of expensive. And I was like, well, it'll be all right. We'll get it together. And when I got it, he was so happy. He got his little number and stuff put on it. It just made me so happy that he was happy. I have that jacket hanging in his closet right now.
So you still have the jacket?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about the dreaded day of August 22nd of 2020. Walk our audience through that day, kind of the time you woke up, the information you received that day, and kind of what you guys did with that information.
On August the 22nd of 2020, it was around, I'd say, between 9 and 9:30 because I had to go to work the next day. So, of course, I was in bed, but I had got up, to use the restroom. My Tyress was in there brushing his hair and brushing his teeth. And I was like, where you going? I'm going to hang out. It wasn't abnormal. He always hung out. And he always came home at a certain time. So I wasn't just like, oh my goodness. So, it wasn't like a shock. He left. I went back to bed. He went in the living room. This is from my husband. My husband said he came in there. They played the video game for a little while. And he was like, well, I'm going to go my ride out here. And he said, but don't lock the top lock because we have a deadbolt and, of course, our regular lock. He said, don't lock the top lock. I'll be back. So the next day I got up, done my normal, went to work. And since I work for the prison system, of course, there's no cell phone. So when I get off at 6 o'clock, I have tons of messages, tons of phone calls. Have you seen Tyrese? Have you heard from Tyrese? And I'm like, no.
And this, you said 8, 9 o'clock. You're talking about PM on the 22nd.
Yes.
So, the next morning at 6 a.m. ish, when you're saying you received these text messages. Now let's talk about those messages. What did they say?
It was actually the next evening, actually, when I got off at 6 p.m. in the afternoon. The messages was like, have you seen Tyrese? Something is wrong with his phone. We ain't heard from him since yesterday. And I was like, well, maybe his phone's just dead. I called his cell phone and I don't know, gave like a weird, like this phone is unavailable is what it said. And I was like, oh, wow. And so then that's when I became truly concerned. And I went to the Jacksonville Police Department to make an official missing report. They said we had to wait 24 hours to make an official missing report because he was 18 years old. He had just turned 18 on July the 1st. So they said we had to wait 24 hours. So we came back the next day to make the report. And just to be honest, from the beginning, I just did not really feel that they were even concerned that my child was missing.
No, and this was with Jacksonville Police. So let's kind of talk about that. Obviously, you said that you didn't feel like there was any kind of care or concern. What did they say? What information did you give them?
We gave them the timeline of Saturday night. We let them know what time he left. They asked us, was it abnormal for him to leave and not come back? And I was like, yeah, because he's 18, but he'll text me and let me know, Mama, I'm not coming back tonight. I'm staying here, there, or the other. So when we initially talked to, he was a sergeant. Oh my goodness, I can't remember the man's name. He was a sergeant, and we talked to him, and he was like, okay, well, I'll get everything wrote down. And this was like late in the evening on Sunday, late in the evening. And so he took our report down, and I posted a picture of Miss Jimenez on my Facebook because Tyrese has showed his best friend a picture of the young lady before his best friend went home. And he was like, this the girl I'm gonna meet.
Now you say Jimenez. We're referring to Brianna Jimenez. That's the girl that Tyrese was going to quote unquote hang out with that night that he left her house. So when you showed them that picture, let's talk about Brianna. When did you receive more information about Brianna and Tyrese's interaction, what their interaction was supposed to be?
That Monday morning, because I hadn't slept, of course, since I got home that Sunday. That Monday morning, early morning hours, you're talking like 4 a.m, she calls me on Facebook and she said, can you please take my picture off of Facebook because you have all my family concerned? And of course, I was like, no, do you know where my son is? And that's when she was like, she dropped him off somewhere and he got in the car with somebody else. She doesn't know. And so I was like, well, this ain't sounding right to me. I said, first of all, we don't even know anybody in the apartments that you claim you dropped my son off at. And she was like, well, that's where I left him at.
Okay, so you talk to Brianna. She tells you she left him at an apartment. What was your next interaction with law enforcement? Did you tell Jacksonville or law enforcement that, hey, this girl, this is who she is? She lives in Palestine. Did you request that anybody go talk to her?
We went back to the Jacksonville Police Department that day, that Monday, after we had spoke with her. Actually, I went to the Palestine Police Department first after that because I had found out that she stayed in Palestine. So I went down there And I made a report with them, but they told me I had to talk to Jacksonville because this is where he came up missing from, Jacksonville. So everybody who had came down there, they was doing a search that day. A lot of people had came down there to do a search, but I went down there to talk to law enforcement.
And that was, tell me the date. Was that was Monday?
Yes, that was the 24th.
Okay, so the 24th, Tuesday. Okay. So, I kind of come into play not too long after that. I believe my first interaction with Brianna Jimenez was on the 24th or 25th. These records are being gate kept, so it's really hard to get the dates. But I was contacted by Quincy, Detective Quincy from Jacksonville PD. Quincy was in our office because he was in town talking to Brianna. Now, he couldn't get anything out of Brianna. She basically was telling him that she didn't know anything. And so Quincy came to me with one of the other Palestine detectives because they had worked together. Detective Dobbs. Dobbs came to me and said, "Hey, man, Quincy's trying to interview this girl. We think she may have something to do with Tyress Gipson being missing out of Jacksonville. Do you mind going and talking to her?" I said, "No, of course not." So I went and made contact with her, and we spoke. All this was on recording, a recorded interview in the interview room at Palestine PD. And that's when I really started to get some unsettling details about Tyress. From what I can remember, I'll tell you what I was told, and then I'm going to ask how this information was relayed to you because, you and I never spoke. So when I was talking to Brianna, she told me that her, Cameron Shedd, Jamarian Lane, and Derek Hicks Jr. met up with Tyress in Jacksonville, but she was kind of a decoy. She said that they were gonna. She reached out to him on Snapchat at the request of Cameron Shedd to buy some gummies, some edibles or something like that. So all this happened on Snapchat, and they met in Jacksonville. Brianna told me that she was driving, and I do have some notes that I just read. She was driving the maroon SUV, and behind her was Lane and Hicks in a red Dodge Charger. She lured Tyress into the SUV while Cameron Shedd was in the back of the SUV. They sat there and talked for a few minutes. She even indicated that maybe they were going to have sex. But as soon as he felt comfortable, she said that's when Shedd jumped from the back seat, had a pistol in his hand, and held Tyress at gunpoint. And at that point, that is when Hicks and Lane came from the Dodge Charger, and they also joined in putting Tyress in the Dodge Charger. Now, you may have some other information, and I'm going to let you kind of talk about what you were told, but she indicated that they drove, directly to Palestine. She said she went home, but they took Tyress in the Dodge Charger, the red Dodge Charger, to Palestine. I asked her if she knew where in Palestine that they went or what they did. And she said she wasn't for sure, but she did say that she knew that she said that she knew that Tyrese was possibly dead. And so that's the information that I received. Quincy was in the room with me. He was sitting in the corner. And, like I said, you and I never really spoke, but I'm assuming this information was relayed to you somehow. So kind of tell me what was told to you and by whom.
Well, actually, none of this information was told to us by Jacksonville Police Department. We actually, just about everything that me and my family have heard has been pretty much street stuff. Jacksonville Police Department kept things pretty much in the wrap because they said there was a leak. So they was like, they weren't able to disclose anything to us due to that fact. Okay, well, we're going to speak because we want justice. So, of course, we're not going to get on some live show and say, oh, this is what Jacksonville Police Department told us. So they never told us nothing. I heard everything I heard came from, oh my goodness, numerous amounts of people who were, I don't know, too afraid to speak to police or didn't believe that nothing was going to take place. And I guess,
So I find out I'm with the Palestine Police Department. Jacksonville Police Department is in our office. They were unable to get information from Brianna or anybody else. That was kind of my specialty. Was interview and interrogation, and so they requested that I do it. And an hour or two in the interview, I made a connection with Brianna, and she finally felt comfortable enough to tell me these things. She didn't want to. She was, with heavy reluctance. She was not initially very open. She was lying initially, but so you're saying the information that they gave me, Jacksonville Police Department was not open and transparent with you and your husband Gerald about the facts or the presumed facts that Brianna had shared with me. They didn't share that with you guys?
No, they didn't share that with us at all. They told us that they had indeed done a search and that they would appreciate if we didn't really proceed on with our searches in case we ran up on some evidence that it wouldn't be tampered with. But after that, I didn't hear nothing else about them doing no search.
All right, so I have a little information on the search. Again, was 2020. So, several years since then. So, and we've tried to get records from the Jacksonville Police Department, but they have petitioned through the Attorney General's office and saying that they don't have to release the records, and we do have proof of that. But so I'm just telling you, just kind of from what I remember, the search was Brianna had said that they had taken Tyrese's body out to property belonging to Derek Hicks, I guess where he lived and his family lived. So I was very adamant. I'm like, hey, this just happened. However, this is out in the county. So I went to my superiors, which was Mark Harcrow, police chief, and James Hebner. He was the my investigative supervisor at the time. I told them, hey, this is what we have going on, which they were all watching from the other room. They knew exactly what was going on. I said, we need to do this. I said, well, this is out in the county. We need to get Anderson County sheriffs involved, get them to write the warrant. So all of us, Quincy, me, the Texas Ranger, Nick Castle, the whole group that was involved went to the sheriff's office. We sat there for several hours while the warrant was being typed up by the investigative team at the sheriff's office. And so then we went out to this property. We went out there. We made our presence known. No one was there in the house. They had recently left, I believe. But down the road, they were located in the vehicle. I believe it was, can't remember if it was Hicks or Lane or both. One of these guys or both of these guys were stopped on a traffic stop just a block or two down from the house, and they were brought in for questioning. We continued searching the property. We walked those woods for several hours. We had Texas Department of Corrections cadaver dogs out there, and it ended up getting dark, and we just we didn't come up with anything. So that's the search that took place after I received the information from Brianna Jimenez. It's kind of crazy to me that none of these facts were relayed over to you guys. Everything you were hearing was coming from the street. And so my part quickly ended. I just kind of want to get my part over so we can continue talking to you. But my part ended shortly after that. My direct supervisor, James Hebner, said, "Hey, you're not going to work this case. This is Jacksonville's problem." And I can quote that just as clear as the day is long. I remember that. They said, "This is Jacksonville problem. This is Anderson County's problem. Nothing happened in the city limits of Palestine." And I'm sitting there extremely frustrated because, number one, I had just received this information. I'm the one that took us to this property. I felt like I was invested, and I didn't want to stop working it. And I remember I was really angry. Tension was high. I threw a chair down the hallway. I was not happy about it. One thing that I did do against what I was told to do was we had a message board, an app that we all used in the police department, and I sent a message through that board, and I said, "Hey, this is the red Dodge Charger. This is the license plate," because I knew that's where Tyress was last seen, was in that Charger, and of course, if we get that, then that's going to be evidence. So I put that out there and sent it out to all the police officers that were working. Well, I get a call that morning. I get a call. It was 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I can't remember when, but I know it was early in the morning. And one of the police officers had located the car. They wanted to know what I wanted to do with it. I said, "Take it to the sheriff's office. We will process it. We'll have to get a warrant. But right now we're just going to seize it for evidence in a murder, potential murder, and then we will get a warrant and search it, the next day." And that's exactly what we did. I say we, the sheriff's office got another warrant, and without the blessing of my superiors, I went to the sheriff's office and I helped process the car. We sprayed Blue Star in the car, which is a chemical that reacts to the hemoglobin in the blood. So we were looking for blood, any kind of evidence, hairs, fibers, anything like that. One thing I want to note, and we'll talk about it here in a bit, was I found a receipt in the car. Again, I wasn't supposed to be there, but I found a receipt in the car. The receipt was for, don't quote me on the exact time. I'm just going to say approximately 1 a.m. in the morning for McDonald's on the South Loop in Palestine, Texas. I pointed that receipt out to Nick Castle and the sheriff's office. And I said, "Look, this is important. Obviously if this crime happened around this time, then we need to go to McDonald's and retrieve the video." But I was put off the case, so that wasn't something I was allowed to do. So, and to be honest with you, that was the last thing that I remember doing, last involvement that I remember having. And from that point, and from that point on, that was it. I wrote a report. My interviews were on with Brianna were on recording, and that was that. So that's kind of my part. Which it was frustrating again because I felt like I'd already worked so much on the case, but to be yanked off of it, they told me not to work it anymore. So I just kind of turned it over to the Rangers, Jacksonville Police Department, and the Anderson County Sheriff's Office. But I will have to say, full transparency here, I didn't feel that Jacksonville Police Department really gave a crap about the situation. I truly believe that. That's the vibe I got. And so, I gave everything that I had to them, and then that was that. So let's talk a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about where you guys were after you heard about the search, and then when you started hearing other information and from who you heard it from.
So after the search, they said that after they done the search, then that's when I contacted Quincy, and then he told us, yeah, we did do a search. We didn't come up with nothing. And I was like, oh, okay. Then I actually spoke with Brianna's grandmother, and she was, of course, apologetic for the situation that was going on or whatever, but she said she really didn't know anything. I spoke with Brianna's sister also, and, she pretty much told me, that she had heard that Tyress was indeed deceased. And so I was like, well, does your sister know where he is? And she was like, I don't think she does. So I was like, okay. From there, I mean, it's just been, oh my gosh, I can't even begin to, just a whole bunch of us going back and forth to the police department, feeling like we were unwelcome there, unwanted there, because on multiple occasions when we went, we would go into the chief of police office, and he was he was like, well, we needed to stop being on social media. That's why don't nobody want to come forward and say anything. As far as everybody being upset about the situation.
And this is your kid, right? Like, I mean, this is your kid. You're obviously not getting answers from the police department. So what are your other alternatives? You're gonna do what you're gonna do to find out what's going on with your kid. So I mean, that's probably the reason why you even went to social media in the first place.
Yes, that's why we initially even went to social media, because I mean, I didn't see no type of initiative for Jacksonville Police Department to take this seriously. I felt like 30 days it kind of went by and we didn't hear really nothing. We'd go down there every week. Me and my husband was down there days during the week, and it was like, oh, we don't have nothing new. And I don't understand, because I'm not in law enforcement, so I only take what you say at hand. But when you come to me and you say, oh, we got new leads, we got this, but then there's no progression.
Couple questions that I have, because I want to jump back real quick. I didn't mention this when I was in my second interview, because I interviewed Brianna a second time. We called Cameron Shedd. I said, let's do what they call a pretext phone call. I said, let's call Cameron Shedd, get him on the phone, act like you're at home. So it was actually Brianna's idea. She turned on like a little movie in the background. We kind of set the scene up, turned the fan on, made some ambiance, just kind of like set the scene. So we called him, and he's like, baby, don't worry about that. Don't worry about this. She's asking him like, hey, the police are calling me. They've called me several times. Are you sure, the body's not going to come up? He said, yeah, don't worry. They're not going to find the body. Don't worry about that. And one of the weird things to me, and this really has nothing to do with anything, during that interview, she kept saying, yes, sir, and yes, sir, and sir. And I'm just like, this dude, you're 18. This is a grown man. That was just kind of weird. And you can speak on that if you want, but there was obviously some sort of dominant relationship there. Maybe they were intimate at some point. I don't know. But so I did want to mention that because I know that came up in court, and we can talk about that when we talk about the court proceedings. But one of the questions that I had was Snapchat. So I kept telling everybody, I was running around the sheriff's office. I was, look, we need to get, you guys need to get Snapchat warrants sent out right now. Because this happened on Snapchat. We need to know geolocations. We need to get these phones. We need to get these warrants going. And it just was like, I'm telling you, it was just the overall vibe was just that, like, it was not a big deal. And anybody that knows me and knows my investigative style, I'm just a very much go-getter. Especially because time is crucial. Time is very crucial when it comes to, a murder case. And if this is what we had, we didn't even know for sure. Actually, if that's what we had, we were just assuming this based off of Brianna's story. But obviously, we were going that direction. But nobody wanted to get the Snapchat. Do you know if that ever happened? I don't know if that again, I was taken off the case, so there was a lot of things that I don't know about at this point that you probably do know. So can you speak on that at all?
No, there was never any Snapchat warrant or anything issued. I asked about that. I also asked about Tyress's Cash App card, which he had with him when he left, and he indeed had money on it. I said, well, did y'all try to contact Cash App to see if anybody used his card? I mean, I'm sitting at home day after day investigating, and it made me feel like y'all sitting down are doing absolutely nothing. Everything that me and my husband told them, none of this stuff was even brought up in court. We had a phone call from Cameron Shedd's baby mama, Fatima McDonald, stating that indeed Mr. Shedd brought her son back to their house in the early morning hours of Sunday morning. Nowhere was this played. I mean, I absolutely do not know what kind of investigation this was. I can tell you it wasn't an investigation at all. I investigated more than they did.
And really, it kind of just seems, we're sitting here and we sound kind of clueless, but maybe because we are. I mean, they wouldn't allow you guys. I want to talk about court here in just a minute. Y'all don't know a lot because you weren't able to go in the courtroom. I was subpoenaed for the case. I called for 2 or 3 weeks trying to get so just to be clear, this was prosecuted in Cherokee County. Cameron Shedd was eventually arrested. I don't want to jump too far. Before we get to talk about the court proceeding, let's talk about Cameron's arrest. How did that come about? Cameron, Hicks, and Lane. Let's talk about their arrests. I knew Brianna got arrested, but at that point, once I was pulled off, it was just information gatekeeping, and I didn't know what had happened. So, from your perspective, let's talk about Cameron Shedd getting arrested. Jamarian Lane and Derek Hicks. Let's talk about all these arrests and how they came about and how you found out about it.
To be honest, I don't know how they came about. I'm just being completely honest. When I can honestly sit here and say, I know just about much today as I knew August the 22nd, I can totally be completely honest. We were left out of the loop about everything. We still don't actually have definite answers about none of this stuff that has taken place at all. As far as these people being arrested, of course, I found out via social media. Everybody was posting their mug shots and stuff. So that's how we found out that they had been arrested. But as far as law enforcement saying, well, we've arrested this person, I totally am like, look, I don't really know what law enforcement has to go through day to day, how investigations go. But I can say, I know when there was not none done, and there was not none done. How y'all investigate something for over 2 years and come up pretty much with your hands empty? But you got all these people involved and you come back with empty hands, but you can't even look a mother and a father in the face and apologize for the lack thereof. That's where I don't understand the lack thereof. You can't even look us in our face and say, we screwed up. We dropped the ball. Say something, because we're sitting here, our son is still missing. And whenever the news people go down there to talk to the chief of police, he doesn't want to say anything because he's like, oh no, we still have open investigations. Let's keep it real. Y'all are not no longer investigating this case. Let's keep it real. Because I know y'all not. Y'all know y'all not. So why are we even saying that y'all are? Because y'all aren't.
Wow. So, man, I just kind of sit here and I try to think about my own boys. If I was in that position, I mean, I just like, you guys found out that these people were arrested through social media. Law enforcement didn't keep you informed about any of this, how they came about to arrest these three, Shedd, Lane, and Hicks. Now, we know Cameron Shedd has gone to trial. Do you know anything about Lane and Hicks? Have they gone to trial? Will they go to trial? Do you know anything about that?
Up until today, Lane and Hicks have not even been indicted for Tyress's disappearance. They are still on ankle monitors as far as I know, but they haven't even been indicted. So unless somebody comes forward and says, I can say for definite these people were here, this took place, I don't even know the likelihood of them even being indicted.
All right. So let's talk about the trial for Cameron Shedd. Now, this was something that had been set and reset and set and reset multiple times. And, I'd already left law enforcement. I left Palestine Police Department for these very reasons. I was keeping up with some of this stuff through mainly just the social media, like the local news channels. I know one of the reporters here in town, and so I kind of just was keeping up with it through them. And so that's how I knew it was set, reset, set, reset, set, and reset. And this whole time, I was irritated because I'm like, how is this trial getting set and reset and set and reset? Number one, what's going on? Number two, why hasn't anybody called me? Like, I don't, not to sound prideful and I just need to get involved, but I'm like, hey, I'm the initial guy who received this information. Nobody's called me. Nobody sent me a subpoena. It wasn't until I reached out, and I want to talk about that real quick too. I keep forgetting some of these points, but one thing I want to talk about is when I finally decided to reach out to you. I think it was February, March of 22. Before I reached out to you, had you even heard anything about me being involved in the case?
No, I hadn't heard anything about you. All they said was Palestine cracked the case. That's exactly what Quincy told us. He never mentioned names or anything. He just said, well, Palestine cracked the case. And that was pretty much it. I'm thinking, well, who down there? And I mean, just the loopholes. I mean, there's more holes in this case. It's like you just took a hammer and just started beating holes in a wall because there's no answers. And here we are as a family, we're still seeking closure. And our law enforcement is absolutely doing nothing. They have absolutely done nothing. And I mean, hey, I have held my tongue. God knows I have. I have been respectful. I have said, Lavance, just, you know what? Just let them do their job. I kept saying that. Just let them do their job. And then when I find out after this is said and done that y'all didn't even do the one thing that I said, just let them do their job, and y'all didn't even do that. Do you know how that feels to our family? It feels like a slap in me, a spit actually in me and my husband's face for even entrusting y'all with this. When we asked, could the FBI be involved? Because this is way too big for little Jacksonville, because it was. They was like, well, FBI can only get involved if he's taken across state lines. Well, how do you know he wasn't taken across state lines if you don't know where he is?
And that's the thing. Like, I think we can share the same frustration. Obviously, you were frustrated because this is your child and law enforcement's doing nothing. I was initially frustrated before I, got pulled off the case. I was frustrated because they pulled me off the case, and I felt like I was kind of onto something at that point. So I reached out to you, and man, I'd been keeping up with it in the news, and I just, you guys were grieving, and I didn't want to interject in that. But I feel like it was time to reach out to you and kind of tell you, hey, this is who I am. This is the involvement that I had in the case. And so let's, again, going back to the court being set, reset, set, reset. Do you know why that kept happening over and over and over?
Well, we would go to the pretrial hearings, and then either defense or DA wouldn't agree on something, so then it would have to be reset. But that's kind of what it boiled down to, is them not agreeing, and something about some DNA that wasn't back, that we never heard anything else about. So that's
now when we processed the car DNA. I don't know. We found what we had thought was possibly, and again, I wasn't supposed to be there. So when I say we, I'm really referring to the sheriff's office and the Texas Rangers. But there was what we thought was a speck of blood, but we had nothing. We didn't have Tyresse's DNA, obviously, because he's missing. So there was nothing that we could compare that to. So did anybody ever reach out to you and try to maybe get, I suggested when we were there, I said maybe find a comb or a toothbrush or anything that would have his DNA for comparison. Did anybody ever do that?
Yes. Greg Compton actually reached out to us and came to our home and picked up some items from Tyrese. And we eventually, his father and I, end up doing a swab to send off to the lab also. But I guess I don't know what it ended up being, because they didn't never come back and let us know anything about it. So.
Well, a capital murder trial is underway in Cherokee County. Cameron Shedd is charged for the death of 18-year-old Tyress Gipson. The former Jacksonville high school football player has been missing since August of 2020. Shedd and 3 others were arrested in connection with Gipson's disappearance, and Shedd's charges were later upgraded to capital murder. Our cameras were not allowed inside the courtroom. Brianna Jimenez, who was also arrested in connection with the disappearance, testified today that she lured Gipson to an abandoned lot in the Jacksonville area with text messages about weed and sex. Now, once Gipson got there, she says he was ambushed by Cameron Shedd, who was carrying a gun. Jimenez says Gipson was beaten and then later killed by Shedd. Shedd's defense attorney argued the investigation was done poorly, and they say Jimenez's story was not properly verified. Shedd's attorney provided photos that he claims shows Shedd was elsewhere at the time Jimenez claims he was committing the murder.
So fast forward to the trial, which was actually a month or two ago. I finally got a subpoena. Nobody called me. Said, hey, Mr. Carlson, we know you initially got the confession, but we're going to subpoena you to this case. Obviously, it was a big deal. This happened in Cherokee County, which is Rusk, because they prosecuted Shedd in Cherokee County, because that's where the kidnapping happened, and even though the murder had possibly happened in Palestine, they went ahead and prosecuted that in Cherokee County as well. So I show up. My part in this was they didn't prep me at all. I called for weeks ahead of time. I said, hey, can anybody tell me anything? Give me kind of insight. Give me my report. Nothing. I show up that day. The only person that had anything to say to me was Nick Castle, the Texas Ranger. He actually let me read his report, which kind of refreshed my memory a little bit. And they never put me on the stand. And we all got sworn in. You and I were there together. They swore a big group of us in at the same time. And I never heard really anything else. I kept calling every day. Hey, y'all going to need me? Y'all going to need me? They said no. They said no. Then finally the assistant DA says, hey, I don't think we're going to use you. So let's talk about the trial from your perspective. Let's talk about the witnesses. Brianna, she testified against Cameron Shedd. From your perspective, let's talk about the trial, how it went. You guys weren't allowed in, so let's just talk about what you know.
Okay, well, we weren't allowed in, of course, because we were subpoenaed to testify. So we got to go in on the day of closing arguments. That's when we heard the tape that Justin talked about. We heard the tape, and I was like, oh, wow. I know people might be like, well, if your kid's been missing this long, surely he's dead. In my heart, I still had some hope that just maybe my child was out here somewhere until I heard that tape. And I was like, oh, wow, my kid's really dead. And sorry. And I'm sitting there, oh, Jesus, looking at this young man who has absolutely no type of remorse. His soul seems so black. And I look over there at his little supporters, my God. And it was just like, all of these people sitting here know he's done this. And they sitting here like he's done absolutely nothing. And so when they're doing their closing arguments and Elmer's done, and then I'm not gonna lie, I got up and left the room because I have no energy to hear all this stuff that the defense had to say because I knew it was just gonna be a whole bunch of stuff to try to make him look innocent. So I got up and I left the room and I went and I sit out in the hallway and I prayed and I had to get my mind together. Just so many emotions going through my mind at one time. And I'm trying to get myself together because my heart just felt like this is not supposed to be good.
So much for joining us tonight. An East Texas man walks free after a jury found him not guilty of killing an 18-year-old Jacksonville man. Cameron Shedd was accused of murdering Tyress Gipson in August of 2020. This afternoon, a Cherokee County jury found Shedd not guilty on all counts.
This is not because I had family who was in the trial, who was there during the whole entire trial proceeding. So they had already been telling me, what had been going on after the verdict was read. So then they came and we all had a discussion about what was said and what it was what. And I was like, I see why he walking out here free because of the simple fact that there was no investigation done. So while I'm sitting there, and then they got the verdict in, we waited down. It wasn't even 3 hours, I don't even believe. So the judge gets the papers. He looks over the papers. Well, gets the verdict, and he looks over the verdict, and then he tells everybody not to make no outbursts in the courtroom. And so I was like, I'm a reader of people, so I watch people's movements. And when he opened up the page, I was like, are you serious? My heart already told me. I was like, but me being the child of God I am, I had already, whatever the decision was, I had already told the Lord, whatever is in your will. And that's what I stand on to this very day. I said, whatever's in your will, because Lord, I don't know what it is that you have to say or that you want to expose, because there's possibly more things that you want to expose. And, oh, Jesus, thank you, Lord. So when they said not guilty, I wasn't just like, I didn't start screaming or crying or fall out in the floor. I stood there like the strong woman of God that I am. I said, okay. And I asked the victim advocate, I said, are we allowed to leave? She said, yes. I got up. I left. I went and got my car because what I don't do is cry in front of the enemy. You will never see me cry in front of you. I shed my few tears. I said, thank you, Jesus. I went home. Am I disappointed? That is, honey, that word is like way beyond what I am. I mean, me and my family are just like, are you serious? Jacksonville Police Department right now. Are y'all serious? And then when they can't even look at us, when they can't even say anything to us, after this man is walking around out here free and he murdered my son. I mean, you murdered my son and you're walking around out here free. But like I said, I serve a God that knows all things. Nothing is hid from my Father. And when God is ready to expose, it will all be exposed. I'm not here to try to send people to prison for the rest of I just want to know where my son is. My son deserves a proper burial, regardless of if you feel like he do or not. And I speak to these mothers of these children and I say, this could be your child one day. And are you going to stand and act like, oh, well, it really doesn't matter? Because it does. And when people say, well, he's dead, so why is she still looking? Because my son is still missing. That's why I'm still looking. So you telling me if your child had her missing and somebody said he dead, you just going to be like, oh, well, I'm done looking. That don't even make sense to any human being walking this earth. But all of the support that we've had from Palestine, the civilians, I say thank you, because I was like, I just knew that everybody was just going to be, oh, no, we'll do. No, it's just a particular group of folks that you don't want to accept and do what's right. But in the end of all of this, after they said not guilty, hey, I put my hands up and I thanked God, because I already know this is not over. When God has anything to do with stuff, it is not over until he says it's over. I'm not mad at the jurors. A lot of people were very upset at the 12 jurors because they can only work with what they were presented with.
What it boils down to is law enforcement did not do what they were supposed to do. What does that mean? I don't know exactly what that means because I was pulled off the case. I know that he was brought to Palestine. Brianna said he was murdered in Palestine. And so that's why I was involved, and that's why I wanted to continue. And I always tell people, somebody said, well, you just think if you would have stayed on the case, you would have cracked it. Well, I don't know. I can't sit here and say that that's what would have happened, but I know how far I got. And I know that I was, quote unquote, hot on the trail. And I felt like had I been able to continue, I would have still been able to do a good job. And it just seemed like the law enforcement officers that were involved didn't care. And so what it boils down to is law enforcement didn't do their job. And the defense was able to poke holes all in the case. Just like, we've been sitting here talking and I'm sure our listeners probably have a million questions because we still have a million questions. There's a lot of things that we don't have answered. And, even the news people, the guys who were in the news, making the news reports were making statements about, how the defense, were poking holes in the case and things just weren't going good. And it just, it's really sad, because you guys still don't have answers. We have a video or a audio tape of Cameron Shedd saying, yeah, don't worry about it. They're not going to find the body. But in the end, law enforcement just did not put a good case together because it seemed like they didn't care. And, as I'm a parent too, but I can't even sit here and begin to say, I can empathize with you, but I can't sympathize with you because I'm not in your shoes. And I just can't imagine how you and Gerald feel, your husband, because I mean, you've lost a child, but of course you're still going to look. Of course you still want answers. And law enforcement, the criminal justice system did not do a good job. And before we wrap up, I do want to put this in there. I want to say that they probably did not use me, and it was probably to their benefit. I don't think it would have helped Tyrese if they used me, simply because what would I had to get up there and say? I would have had to say, well, where's my report? They don't have my report. She told me this, but they pulled, Chief Mark Harkrow and CID Sergeant Jace Hebner pulled me off the case. Nobody seemed like they cared. That would have been the truth. So I would have had to get there and say the truth, so it wouldn't have helped the case. So I think it was probably in their best interest to not use me, but it's still just frustrating. And I just can't begin to imagine how you guys feel. What are you guys doing? How are you guys coping? How are you guys living day-to-day life? What's keeping you going? And what do you hope to see come from all of this now?
Actually, we have decided to put together a scholarship in Tyrese's name. I am working on that currently. That keeps me going, when I can find positive things to come out of an ugly situation. And of course, my Father in heaven first, because if I didn't know the Lord and he didn't love me like he do, I would probably be lost my mind, or God only knows what. So I sustain myself every day by making sure that I stay in his grace, because he's kept me. I have a lot of nights where I cry. I'm really sad. It's hard for me to look at my son's pictures sometimes because I don't know. I don't want to actually know what transpired on the day. I want to know where he is. I don't want to have the thought of all these ugly things that y'all done to my child running through my mind every day. I don't hate these people. I don't never want them to think that, because I wouldn't give you that type of satisfaction. I don't hate you. Am I a dislike for the fact that you allowed such evil to come in and make you do something that you cannot go back and erase? And that I say that to say, if you could, would you even go back and erase it? Or would you do a better job at making sure that your name was never even mentioned in the situation? Me and my family go day to day. Everybody, there's so many people who are every day encouraging me to just be like, doing good, mama. Just keep going. No, because I have to block out the things of the world and I have to focus, because I have to maintain my sanity. I have to maintain my peace, my joy. Because I know my son would have been like, man, mama, don't worry about this. Don't worry about. I know what type of person my child is. So I don't dwell on. I don't need to know the logistics and the details of what happened on that night, because that ain't gonna help me. I just want to know where Tyrese is. Where is Tyrese? And when I encounter some of these individuals who were involved, they can't even look me in my face, but y'all tell me y'all ain't done nothing to my son, but you can't even look me in my face, and you a man. You can't even look at me. Your family can't even look at me, because they even know. It's disturbing to my soul that so many people can sit on something that's so big. I'm just glad that God gave me 18 years, because he could have gave me less than that with my child. God gave me 18 years, and I've always been a firm believer of what you do always seems to surface back around, but when he hit you, it always seemed to hurt a little bit worse than when you dished it out. So don't do stuff that you don't think is going to come back, because it always does. And I've prided myself every day on reading God's word and knowing that it is never as it appears. People look at this situation and say, oh, this lady ain't gonna never find her son. Oh, these people ain't gonna never, this ain't gonna never happen. This, I don't use the word never. I use the word if it's in God's will. Those are my words, because if it never happens, that was in God's will. So that's why I don't say never, because I don't know what he gonna do. But I've continued to pray for these individuals. I have. I know people probably like, what? Yes, I've continued to pray for them, me and my husband, because they're lost souls. And lost souls seem to think that these type of things are okay, starting with the parents on down to the children. They think that these things are okay. Then you start raising your kids like this, and they think that these things are okay. Hey, whatever you do it for the glory of the Lord, or don't do it at all, because it's not going to benefit you. In the end, we're all going to have to take account for the life that we've lived. And I just pray that these people, that God touches their heart, that some repentance comes about, that you say, this lady needs to know where her son is, that you can't leave this earth without allowing somebody to know where their child is. I would never even wish this pain that I've felt for so many years upon any of their mothers, because they might not be strong like me. They cannot handle this type of load like me. Because everybody says, oh my God, I don't see how you do it. I said, honey, I know how I do it, but it's just the fact that I'm doing it that makes me be like, oh wow, God is awesome. But I said that, and I just pray that, one day the hearts of these individuals are changed, because you can't say one thing, you can't live this type of life and think you're going where the king is, because you're not. Or do you even care? I mean, some people don't even care if they go to hell and burn. It's a real place. I don't know. I know what type of child I raised, and I know that I tell people to watch the people that their children hang out with, because your children can be influenced by other children, and you be like, oh, because when they around you, they seem like they're such a good child. You be like, no, they good. And because behind your back, they out there doing God knows what. So don't ever judge a book by its cover unless you done opened it up and read some pages out of it, because if you ain't read it, then you really don't know. I'm living my life every day to strive to help people get closer to the Lord, because period, this ain't my home. I'm just here visiting for a while. This, when I die, they ain't gonna be like, well, put Lavance in her house over there. No, I'm gonna be with the Lord. And that's my whole goal, is self-salvation and trying to help others get to the Lord, because when this is said and done, it's not gonna matter who did this. It ain't gonna matter how much money you got, what kind of car you drive, all that stuff gonna be left here. You can't take that stuff with you. Just do what's right. That's my whole thing. Do what is right. Sit in your house and say, if this was my son, would I want this lady to come and say, well, I heard this? Because some people feel like, oh, well, this isn't even significant enough to even say. And then it might just be something that just breaks something wide open. Yeah, my phone number is all over social media. Don't hesitate to call me for anything. I mean, if you just want to say, oh, I just want to say hi, or if you want to vent to me, I'm a sounding board. I'll listen to whatever you got to say. Your personal stuff, whatever, and it stays between me and you. You got to carry each other's burdens. I just want to say thank you, Justin, for everything you've done, because, you came and you talked to me, you kept it real with me. That's the least I can say, because we're still in the dark.
Well, I have to say, truthfully, from the bottom of my heart, like I really admire your spirit, because I'm just going to be honest with you, like, man, and I'm sure you have some moments alone where it's really, really bad, but what I'm getting at is I think about my boys and if I were in your shoes, like, man, makes me want to tear up right now thinking about it, because I do not know. I'm certain I wouldn't be able to have your spirit. And, you know, I'm a believer too. But man, I don't know how you guys are in that courtroom of shit. I don't know how you have just held your composure, and I guess the answer is what you gave. I mean, it's God, and you know, He's given you the spirit that you have, and it's truly something that I've admired about you and Gerald, and you know, my prayer is the same. I think at this point, we probably all share the same thought. We don't have to know the nitty-gritty details. I think we just kind of would like to know where Tyress is. And to anybody listening, no, it's not too late. You can submit all kinds of anonymous tips. You know, we have a website you can go to. That was given at the beginning of the show. And again, Lavance, she's got her phone numbers on Facebook. She's got social media pages up for Tyress. And it's not too late. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I want to let our listeners know that there's a way that you can help support our organization. If you go to our website at www.thisisfailingjustice.com, scroll all the way to the bottom of the homepage, and there you're going to find a donation link. Any amount you can donate will help us further our mission and reach more people. We believe it's really important to keep spreading the word about the issues that are plaguing our criminal justice system and how we can make it better. It is crucial to keep fighting for the change, and with your support, we can do just that.
This is Failing Justice.